Hey there, I'm Brad Miller, and with Jason Medford today, and we're gonna row our boat down the stream, because life is but a dream. I
Well,
thought,
I love that. Well, and it's as we were talking because we wanted to call the podcast this episode "Life Is But a Dream,"
mhm.
but it's funny because as we're bringing up that kids song, and I know we've talked about this in other episodes too, but looking for the signs, looking for the teachings,
Mhm.
and here's an example of a kid's song that's taught to kids that all of you that grew up in America, you have heard this song because it's kind of a classic that you teach little kids, right? Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Few words in there, but when Brad brought this up this morning and I started singing that in my head, I'm like, holy shit, right? We're rowing, rowing, rowing our boat in life,
Mhm.
but do it gently. Do it gently down the stream. Because if you do it merrily, 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 life is but a dream, right? So, a lot of hidden stuff in that song too that we weren't planning on going to. And Brad's like, Jason, come on, reel it back in, buddy. Let's go.
No, no. I mean, we can take this in the gym with Javis episode. It's cool. Like we can but
No,
or
but I
behind
but
the
but I think it's like I said, there's a lot of meaning behind those words too. That again, those of you that are geeky that way from a music perspective, maybe go ponder on that for a little bit. But the topic at hand, life is but a dream. Brad, you're the one that kind of
mhm.
brought that up as
Yeah.
a topic for us to go over. So maybe kind of explain, what you're thinking and how we're going to go from talking about this today.
So I have no idea where we're gonna end up with this. But
Yay! It's like
uh
every other
just
episode.
like pretty much every other episode, right? So really, there should be no surprises there for anyone who listens to us, you know, semi regularly anyway. So earlier this week, I started reading a book, and it's kind of a spiritual book. And as I'm reading it, I had a couple insights. A couple things hit me. One of them is kind of caused me to kind of set the book down, and I had to go off and journal and do some things because it really kind of hit me, kind of strong. But the other thing that kind of hit me was kind of what the beginning of the book started talking about, and that's the idea that the life you're living is I don't know how to explain it, man. The what you think of was reality isn't really reality. The life that you're living is really a dream. You are the creator of that dream. You're creating this reality along with the collective, as well. Um, but yeah, so I'm gonna let you see where that comes from you, because I don't like this pressure. It's just too much for me. I can't
It's
do it.
so much
It's
fun.
just
You're
yeah.
under pressure. Little Bowie and Queen going on here too on this episode, huh? No, but I think it's interesting. And again, a lot of you listening are going to be shaking your head like, come on, no, this is reality. What I'm sitting at my desk right now, or I'm driving in the car, and this is my reality. Well, it is your reality because it's the reality that you created, but it's not necessarily reality, right?
Right.
And this is where, we all create our own dream life. And again, I use that word, and some of you may be like, "No, my life is hell right now. It's not a dream." Well, you're creating your life, and you have in your life exactly what it is that you've created, right? Whether you want to believe it or not, you don't have to believe me, but it's the truth, right? And what's interesting about it is that the dream that we all create, the life that we all create, is based on the indoctrinations and the beliefs and the identity that we hold to. And And because of that, my dream looks different, right, than Brad's, then looks different to yours, who's listening. And sometimes it's so fundamental. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about toilet paper. Oh yeah, baby, we're going to talk about toilet paper today, because it's just popped into me on a speech that I gave last week. It's going to go well with with what we're talking about here too. So hold on, we're going to talk about toilet paper and going to the bathroom here in just a minute, just to hold everybody's attention. But what's interesting is, right, we all are taught to believe that certain things are true or certain things are false, right? Because of the indoctrination, the beliefs, the identity that we have. And so sometimes I'll do this little exercise. Like I remember I was sitting around a table, several of my friends, about six of us, we rented an Airbnb and kind of came together and spent a few days together, all in this house. And so we're sitting there talking about some different things, and somehow kind of this sort of topic came up. And there was a bag of chips or something on the table. And as we were talking about this, I said, all of us sitting around the table think that we're looking at the same color on the bag of chips. But literally, to each of us or to different of us, it could appear to be a different color. And they're like, what do you mean? Right. And so we all kind of went around. It's like, well, the bag is blue. Right. To me, it looked blue, if I remember right. And a couple of people are like, yeah, it's blue. And somebody else goes, no, it's purple. And we look at it again. It's like, well, you're seeing purple. We're seeing blue. Somebody else might be seeing something else. So even something as simple as a color, right? Brad might perceive something in a color differently than I do, right? But we don't even stop to think about that, right? Because my dream, my reality dream is, well, that's a blue bag of chips, because that's what I believe. But is it really a blue bag of chips? It's what my eyes were perceiving, right? And anything is never just one thing, that we've talked a little bit about before. And some of that goes back to things like IQ tests, right? Where they'll ask you what seems to be nonsensical questions like, how high is the sky? Well, some people would give it a direct measurement. Other people would say, well, what do you mean by the sky? Is that the atmosphere of the earth? Is that, whatever, to be able to come up with some sort of a number. And so I think it's interesting because, like I said, your dream, Brad, is different than my dream necessarily, because we're perceiving things different, and we choose to see or not see certain things as well, which is an interesting point as well.
Yeah. Now, when you talked about the color of the chip bag, the first thing in my mind came was school buses. Like, what color are school buses?
Mm-hmm.
School bus yellow. Well, to me, they're kind of more orange than yellow.
Ah.
But that's just, there's at least here in the US, it's like a universal school bus color. I think is like
For the most part, yeah.
And they
Yeah.
have to kind of be that color. But to me, that's kind of more of an orangey than it is a yellow. But yet we all say, oh, school bus yellows. It's like, no one says school bus orange.
Interesting.
Right? But that's kind of, again, you talked about kind of the indoctrination that we're all led to believe that, hey, school bus yellow, that's the name. And that kind of goes, and you talked about the purple of the chip bag. That color you may have seen a different color, like the shade, the pigments, whatever, may have been different than somebody else. Or it could have been that you all saw the same, but you just had a different name for it. Or to you, this was blue. To somebody else, well, that same identical shade is actually purple to them. They call it purple. Kind of like someone says, well, this cup is hot. And someone says, it's more like lukewarm to me.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone says, it's kind of like room temperature. And someone says, oh God, that's scalding. It may be the exact same temperature, but it's someone's perception of that feeling of the cup or how spicy food is. My wife likes spicy food. So she's like, oh, this is spicy. This is good. And I'm like, I can't feel my tongue anymore. Like, this is awful. Right. So it's not just, it's not just that there's differences in actually what we're seeing, but it just could be how we how we process what that is and how we relate that to other things in our experience.
Well, I think it's an interesting thing too about we may call the same thing by a different name. And so this does have a huge tie-in to kind of the whole spiritual world and path, is that a lot of times people are kind of talking past each other, or they'll use each person will use a different word to describe the same thing, and then they can't understand why they think that they're not in agreement when really they're just using different words to mean the same thing. And so it was, as an example, we had somebody that commented on the YouTube video from this last week and was like, hey, glad to find the channel, great job. Do you guys actually believe in a creator? Right, was the question. Right, because again, we haven't really talked too much about that or used the word God necessarily very much. And so I, type back a little response, well, there is a creator, and we just use different words to describe the creator. And again, even the word creator versus God, there's a difference there, right? But it kind of reminds me of a story that I was told about Einstein. Because, again, he was scientist, obviously, through and through, right? But he was also a very spiritual, eclectic kind of person. He knew that we were just trying to explain through science what the universe was doing, but there was something much bigger, right? And so a lot of times people would ask him things, about God or other things like that. And I remember one of the stories where his typical response would be, so, Professor Einstein, do you believe in God? And he's like, well, can you explain to me what you mean by God? Right? Because again, he was trying to kind of come to terms with, well, what do you mean exactly? And so if the person were to say, well, bearded white guy who sits up in the heavens and has a son named Jesus and the Holy Ghost and the Trinity, to which he probably would have said, well, no, I don't quite believe in that that way. Right. But is there a God? Is there a supreme being? Yeah, but it's not quite as simple as just that. Right. Is there a creator? Yeah, but it's just not quite as simple as that in one creator, right? It's like, if you think about something like a house, well, who's the creator of that house?
That's a good question. Is it the builder, the person who's pounding
The
the nails?
architect?
Is it the architect who designed it? Is it the person who says, this is my idea of what I want the house to look like, built,
Huh? Or is everybody who's involved with creation of that house actually a creator? Right. And that's different, right? Than like, well, who's the big boss in the sky? Well, for every boss that you're aware of, there's usually a boss above that boss, right?
Boss's boss.
Boss's boss, right? Jefe el jefe. So it's not as simple as that, right? And a lot of times we would like to, in our own way, just kind of discreetly put something around it, which goes back to the dream, right? Because it's like if all of a sudden, Jason, you're asking me questions that I just can't answer, it's outside of my reality, it doesn't fit nicely within the dream of what I want to see and what I choose to ignore, right? And because of that, right, that's why sometimes people don't want to hear things like that, because they want to stay in their dream. They want to keep taking the blue pill in the matrix, right? They just want to stay asleep, which is fine if that's what people want to do. as well, right? But when you start to realize that what you're seeing, right, is often not what you're actually seeing, and start to think that way and think differently, then your world starts to kind of expand. And again, what's the dream? Who's the dreamer? Um, and what we think is so tangible is actually probably not, right?
So your real world example of this. So for the lawyers out there who might be listening, probably none of them are, but if you by chance are a lawyer and you're listening, so you know that they're witnesses for accidents. You can have two people witness the exact same occurrence, and they can each have their own different story of what happened. Now, it's the same thing here. And it's based on, well, this person was speeding. Well, no, they were probably just going the speed limit. The light was red. Somebody else says, well, no, the light was turning red. It was still kind of yellow when they went through the intersection. This person was running, or they had a red shirt on, or they had whatever this person was. Like, there are studies that show that two people can see the exact same thing, and they describe it completely differently. It happens to witnesses in criminal or civil cases. There's scientific studies that have shown this principle, that people see different things, and it's all, or a lot of it is colored by your life experiences, by the way you see the world, by this indoctrination that you have, the filters, the rose-colored glasses that you may be wearing, is how you see things. Some people may, we had an election a couple of weeks ago. Some people here in the US, some people may say, well, the election went great. I love how it turned out. And people may say, oh, this is terrible. The country's going down the shitter because, of how it's turned out. Same election, same results, but it's just based on the perception of the people. And oftentimes it's what reinforces the beliefs that they currently have. Because we don't like the change. We don't like something being wrong. We want to find data. We want to find things that show that we're right, that fit in with the model that we have of our realities.
Yeah. Well, and some of you that are listening might be like, why are we talking about this on a spiritual podcast? Why are you teaching me how to meditate or whatever, or pray? Well,
maybe next time, guys. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
maybe next time, right? But no, I mean, in all truth, the reality of walking a spiritual path, a lot of it is getting rid of the indoctrinations and the false beliefs that you have. And it's not your fault that you were taught them. It's part of society. It's some of these things are taught to us so that we are good little citizens, right? That we're,
Fit in and with everything. Yeah.
God-fearing, legal following, subjugated people in society to have order. Sometimes it's because people want to control us, or they want to take our money from us, or want to convince us, all kinds of other stuff, right? But part of a spiritual path is awakening yourself to start questioning things that you've believed for a long time. Mm-hmm. Something that maybe your parents or your preacher has told you, because they're usually not true. And it's not anything against the people who taught you. They thought they were doing the right thing. It's what they were taught. But part of your awakening and growth is to start to see the world differently, right? Because again, I mean, people, people in our professions, or engineers or analytical people, they'll sit there and they'll try to say things like, well, no, paranormal activity doesn't happen. That is just, it's scientifically impossible. There's always another reason, and so you've got shows like, I don't know, Ghost Mythbusters or whatever, and they're like, no, it really wasn't that. Look, there was this over here, and that made this or that happen. Well, you can believe what you want to believe. And if you want to only come from it from that standpoint and be limited in Unless there's a scientific explanation for something happening, then it doesn't happen. But I will tell you, there is paranormal activity and non-ordinary reality, and I have experienced it. And science can't explain it, but that's because science can't explain it. But because science can't explain it, doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Okay. So you might have to start throwing some of your beliefs out. So you want to talk about toilet paper in the bathrooms now? This is going to be
Let's
great.
do it.
Okay.
Some toilet paper.
Okay. So again, those of you that are listening, you're like, nope. There's one right way to do certain things, and I'm not going to change my beliefs, right? Well, just consider this as an example. When you go in, right, to the toilet, you're sitting down to do your number 2 business, right? And we all do our number 2 business. Hopefully, if you're regulated, once, twice a day, maybe at least every other day, so you're not clogged up, right? We're all doing this. Now, when you go into the bathroom and you do your business, and here's the first thing. Okay, now there's debate online about which way the toilet paper roll is supposed to go, right? Is it supposed to go over the top or behind, right? And again,
over top.
People argue about it. The patent shows over the top, but if you have a cat or other things, and I'm that way. I prefer it over the top too, right? So anyway, you can have that debate, right or wrong. Well, there's no right or there's no wrong. I mean, again, I prefer that.
Yeah, that's all right.
I prefer that. Yeah. But really, your toilet paper could go either way. It still accomplishes its task, right? Okay, but the next thing, because we got to talk about the toilet paper first, right? Is are you so when you get ready, right, and you take your toilet paper, okay?
Hey, where this is going, yeah.
Yeah, are you a folder? Are you a scruncher, or are you a roller? And a lot of you are going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? No, when you take it off the thing and you wad it up and then you wipe, right? Or other people are going to be like, no, 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 no. You have to fold it, right? Fold it up, do your wipe, fold it again, right? I mean, that's how I was taught. I'm a folder. And man, my dad could fold like you would not believe. He got every ounce out
origami
of that toilet
action.
out of that toilet paper that he could, right? So first thing, right, is again, whatever your proclivity is for how you scrunch or roll is like you roll it around your hand. I learned this last week. I didn't even know people did that. I learned that last week when I was given this as an example in one of the speeches I was giving. So yeah, some people roll it around their hand and do that instead of folding it. Okay, so folder, roller, or scruncher, right? So first off, that should let you know that, again, you can argue that one way is the right way. One way is not the right way. One way might be your preferred way, right? Or the way you would like to do it. But it doesn't mean that somebody else is wrong for doing it a different way. But knowing that now starts to open your awareness, open your consciousness, which is part of the spiritual path. You've got to start opening your consciousness, right? That's why I'm telling you this crazy story. Now, here's the other thing. So you get your toilet paper. You're all good with your toilet paper. I've got mine folded. Just since I've shared, Brad, or which of those are you too? So are you a folder, a scruncher, or a roller?
A little bit of fold, but mostly scrunch.
Okay, there we go. See? So, hey, then there's either way, right? There's a combination that you can do, right? So the next thing, you've got your toilet paper. Now, you're getting ready to wipe. Do you wipe while you're sitting down, or do you stand up to wipe? Didn't know there were two options, did you? Right? So
really, it's probably more of a continuum, because you
probably
squat a little bit up, because you need to be able to
get in there,
and
little cheek liftage, right?
Or, whatever, or and I suppose if you're like in a what with the little water sprinkled up, that also would impact
the bidet,
bidet with that impact standing or sitting, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and how did I even come up with this? I happened to be having dinner with a group of people, and I don't know how this came up, but it came up around
It,
the
somehow
table
things,
in the
crazy
restaurant.
things, tend to come up with
Yeah.
Jason's conversation. So I mean,
So yeah, and the funny thing, so again, I was taught to fold and to sit, right? I just kind of lean to one side so I can get in and do my business, but that's how I was taught, right? But the interesting thing is maybe there were 10 of us around the table. Only two of us sat. The rest of the people stood to wipe, which again, I just find interesting because I'm thinking, well, you stand up and and it makes it harder to
physics.
get in there, but
That's physics.
a lot of people do it, right? And so, again, it's like there's no one right way. And like you said, even there might be a continuum there too, right? But there's more than one way to do it. And can you start to open your awareness, open your consciousness, and actually realize that there's no one single way, right? Because that's a part of this whole process. Yeah, because if you can't see past the physical matter form that you think is, like right now, okay, I'm doing a little demonstration for people watching the video. I'm touching my hand, right? Because I've got one of my hands up in front of me, and to me, the dream, or what I've been taught and what I believe, is that my hand is solid, right? And because my hand is solid, right, my other hand won't go through it. But in reality, like 90% of my hand is air. And so why couldn't something go through it? We see the wall and we think the wall is solid. But again, just like anything else, in every atom, like 99% of an atom is air. So if you've got a whole bunch of atoms put together, what's to say that we couldn't just go through the space? Right? But our physical limitation, our physical beliefs, the indoctrination we have is, no, that's a wall. You can't go through the wall. If you want to go into the other room, you got to go through the door, right? You got to open the door and walk through the door, right? And again, I'm throwing something crazy out there again, right? But maybe it's not that crazy too. But part of your evolvement is starting to be able to see non-ordinary reality, see things in different ways, because in different dimensions, things operate differently.
Well, I mean, don't even have to get to that point. I mean, just you talked about how 99% of the atoms are empty space. Like this is now we're starting to get into quantum physics. So
Yep.
all the engineers and scientists, you're probably like, oh yeah, here we go. This is our spot now, right? So like the quantum physics says that you've got all this space and just little bits of something in there that are wherever, and get into the entanglements, all that kind of stuff. But the question is, why couldn't you go through, like you said, go through your hand or go through the wall if you have all that space? Why couldn't air just go through nice and easy? Why does it have to be hitting something solid?
Because the
And that's
observer believes it's solid, and that's quantum physics too.
right, because you've been told that it is, and so that's what you come to expect that it's going to be, that when you hit the wall, it's going to, or the deer, it's going to be solid. You
Yep.
expect it to be solid. But why couldn't you just go woo and right through it, like through the empty space in there? Again, it's most of it is empty space, so
Yep.
why is that not a thing? Right.
And
So
again, for everybody who's listening, we are not suggesting you try to walk through walls or do anything like that right now. Don't do anything unsafe.
but if you are able to do that, please let us
Please
know,
let
because
us
we want to
know.
get you in the Pinecast.
Yeah,
We want to
let
get
us
you on
know.
here and we want to interview you if you actually can walk through walls. So
Yeah, there we go. But I mean, again, and we started off talking about life is but a dream, right? And again, it is. It's a dream that we've created. based on our beliefs, based on the indoctrinations, based on the identity that we have, right? But part of that is creating the dream that you want, right? And not being locked um, into what you've been taught. And instead, allow things to come through, allow things to be, because things are never just one thing, right? I mean, I can look at this thing that I'm sitting in right now, and most people would say it's a chair. It is. But is it something else too? Because a chair can be used for a lot of different things. It can be used as a step stool if you need to get up a little high. It could be used as a table, right? You could kneel down in front of it and put your dinner on it, and you could use it as a table if you needed to. There's so many different things that a chair could be used for, right? And if you're the kind of person who believes that a chair is a chair is a chair is a chair, a chair will always be a chair and it's nothing but a chair, then maybe the spiritual path isn't for you, because you're locked into something. And that's where, again, when we throw out words like dogma tells you the chair is a chair is a chair and can only be a chair and shall only be used as a chair. And if you use the chair for anything other than a chair, then you are committing a sin for which you need to repent, because a chair is a chair is a chair, thus saith the Lord God above, right? Or your local preacher. And that's not what we're talking about, right? Is when you allow the dogma, when you allow your beliefs to just hold you in place where you are, then you're not going to evolve. You're not going to open your levels of consciousness. You're not going to be able to see or do things any different than the 3D, which is fine if that's what you want, right? But I'm guessing, since you're listening to this podcast, that you're like, no, I want more. Okay, open your consciousness, start thinking about things different, right? And realize that you are just living in a dream. And if you want the dream to be different, then change the fucking dream. You're right. The one who's dreaming. If you want it to be different, change your dream. Right?
Yeah, no, and that's a huge point there, actually, because so many people feel that they are victims, that they are, that they are just being dealt this hand that they have to play with, and they don't acknowledge the fact that actually they are the creators. You are the creator of this life that you're living in. If you have, all the things that you want in life, that's because you've created it. If you don't have the things you want in life, that's because you created that too. Right. And part of that is, manifestation or whatnot, but getting rid of some of the crap, some of these beliefs that you have that you're holding on to about how things have to be. When you can start getting rid of those stuff, you can see the possibilities of, maybe I don't have to have my life look like this. Maybe I don't have to have the chair just be a chair to sit on. Maybe I could use that chair to help me put a box up on a shelf. Maybe I could have all the money and the brand new cars and the success and the happiness that I want, as opposed to the job that I hate going into and the boss that I despise and, this life that I really don't like to have. You can start taking some of that power and being able to start exercising it to be able to create what it is that you really want. Mm-hmm. Because again, you are the one who created this dream around you, which means that you can create a new one.
Yeah. Which I think is so empowering for people, but I understand it can be scary too.
Oh yeah. Oh, well,
a little scary too.
Phenomenal cosmic power. I mean, it'd be living space. Like it's,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anything else, Brad, on this one?
I mean, we hit toilet paper and how you wipe.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we've walked through walls. I mean, we've got quite a bit of stuff. We get through some quantum physics in there for the more analytically inclined among us. Like, I mean, I think we've hit a lot of stuff. We basically said God doesn't exist. Like, I mean, all these fun things we've thrown in here. I mean, I think we're
Whoa, whoa,
pretty
whoa,
good for
whoa. We didn't
today.
we didn't say God doesn't exist. We don't want a bunch of hate mail from people, right? Because some people really hold on to um things like that. And again, so maybe just to kind of end, right? Let's take that because it's a charged thing
It is.
for
Yeah,
people. I mean, it's a very charged thing. But it's such a big concept that to distill it down into at least how most religions explain that concept is very limiting and very narrow in scope. It's even narrower than saying a chair is a chair and is only a chair. It's even more narrow than that, right? And so we're not saying that necessarily, right? But what we're saying is that the concept that you may or may not believe as what you call God is not necessarily the same thing that we may use that term for or may choose not to use the term for. I don't really use the term that much because I see it as something grander and larger and much more in depth and much more complicated um, and difficult to understand and describe in the form that we're in right now because you can't, right, fully it's a paranormal kind of activity, non-ordinary reality to be able to truly grasp some of these concepts. But so we're not necessarily saying that, but if you're one of those people that's like that you're still feeling that way, right, if you want to keep feeling that way, great. But I found in my life when I start, because I was raised religious, right? I was taught what was, God the Father, Son Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost, right? I mean, that was the Trinity, the Godhead. But as I've changed or kind of thrown out some of those beliefs or realized, and it's not a complete throwing out, like saying it's all bullshit, but it's adding to it, right? And understanding at a deeper place what some of these concepts mean and realize that it's much more grandiose and that there's room for both, right? Can I still believe in a creator? Absolutely, I do, right? But how I understand creation is different, right, than the story that religions are teaching, which is fine, right? To me it's more empowering. It makes a lot more sense to me. I feel it inside, right? And again, that's all we're kind of talking about is like you can believe whatever you want to believe, right? We're just kind of sharing what we do and take it, leave it, try it out, don't try it out, doesn't matter, right? But just realize that you are living in a dream. I'm living in a dream. Brad's living in a dream, right? It's just our dreams are all a little bit different because of what we're choosing to believe, the identity that we're choosing to take on that shapes how we see the world. So, and we're still going to get a bunch of people like, you said there was no God.
you know what? That might not be a bad thing. Getting some comments and things like that. Get some attention that way. I've had some haters on social media the other day and had to block some people. And sometimes you just kind of need things to stir up because you know it shows people are paying attention and that
Yeah.
you're triggering them, you're hitting them someplace, and so they're starting to think about things.
Yeah.
And
And if
so,
people choose not to believe, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter one way or the other. And sometimes maybe those people needed to not be in your life anyway. So, yeah.
for the rest of us, we just
So,
merrily row our
yes, I was going to
boat
say,
down the
row,
stream.
row, row your boat. Merrily, merrily. Remember to be
Right.
merrily, merrily, merrily this week, everyone.
That is
Even
very
if your
important.
name is not Marilyn. Bad joke. Or good joke. Who knows? Anyway.
And on that note, we thank you guys for listening this week. we hope you found something that you can maybe chew on for a bit and to make you think. And if you like it, let us know, and we'll keep throwing more stuff out at you.
All right. And we'll see everybody on the next episode.
Till then.
All right.